All right, welcome back to our tic-tac-toe game here. So in the last video, we went ahead and we made our board. We wrote a function that could print out the board, and we wrote a function that could allow us to place a tick. So we're going to do a couple things in this video. The first one I'm going to start off is we're just going to start to put together a game loop here. So you can see here that we started to play around with these functions, show board and place tick, just to test it out. Well, let's go ahead and write a loop that will allow us to alternate turns, X's turn, O's turn automatically, and show the board so we don't have to write these functions, a million times over and over and over again, which is a pretty simple task. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a variable to track whose turn it is. So I'm going to call this variable X turn, and let's make X go first in our game. So we'll set it equal to true. And you'll see what this does. And we don't need an O turn variable because we'll just swap the X turn variable to false. If X turn is false, we know it's O's turn. So we don't need two variables here for that. So then let's go ahead and make our loop. And I'm just going to set it. Trying to think of how to do this. We could make another variable too that is called like 1 equals false. Yeah, we could do that. So while 1 is equal to false, we're going to have this loop running. And then from there, the code should just be pretty simple. If it's X's turn, so if X turn is equal to true, or if X turn, then we'll call our function place tick with the parameter of player X. Else place tick with the player O. And then just within these if and else statements, we'll switch those variable X turn. So after X's turn, X turn should be false, and that will make the next turn O's turn. And then after O's turn, it's X's turn, so we'll set X turn equal to true. So that should alternate the turns perfectly. And then one other thing we probably want to add is we want to be able to print the board. We have a function to do that, show board. So we also want to show the board every turn. Hey, let's just try it out. Let's see if it works. So we should be greeted with it's X's turn. Let's have him go in the first space, second column. And now it's O's turn. Let's go 2 and 2, and we're playing tic-tac-toe. 3 and 2. Cool. So that works. Alternates the turns, prints out the board. That'll work. So we got a couple more functions to write, and we're going to start writing the functions that check to see if someone has won the game. And we're actually going to do this in a couple different ways, right? Because there are 3 different ways to win tic-tac-toe. The first way is you could win across in a row. The second is you could win up or down in a column. The third is you could win a cross. So we're actually going to write 3 different functions to check to see if there is a winner, right? So let's write it like this. Let's write the first one, and let's just go ahead and write the function to check a row win. So we'll call this check horizontal, and this will check for a horizontal win. Oops, I need a def statement there. And then I'm also going to just have this. I'm also going to have this function take a parameter called player, and we'll just call it twice with both players there after their turn, see if they won horizontally. That way, I think it'll make it easier to see if there's a winner at the end of the game. So let's just do that. So we want to check to see if there is a horizontal win. So how do we check to see if there's a horizontal win? Well, in order for there to be a horizontal win, either row 1, row 2, or row 3, they would need to be completely filled with that player's tick mark, the X or the O. So we could check that a couple different ways, but I think the easiest way is let's just go through each row one at a time and check to see if it's a winner. So we could do that with a for loop. We could write something like for every row that's in our board. And now we have a for loop that checks the rows, which is pretty cool. And then to check to see if there's a winner, we need every single item to have that player's tick mark. So we could test this two different ways. The first way is we could say if we could write this out the long way. If row 0 is equal to player, and row 1 is equal to player, and row 2 is equal to player. That will actually work perfectly. That's actually a very, very easy way to write it. You could think, hey, if row, and remember row will be each row, so row 1, row 2, row 3, and then we call the specific columns in there. So these indexes are calling the columns because the for loop already goes through each row. Hey, if the first item in the row is 0, if the first item in the row is player, the second item in the row is player, and the third item in the row is player, that means all the way across it's the same thing, player, player, player. Then we can end the game. Set 1 equal to true. And that will happen for every row. So that would actually work, or it should work. One thing I'm thinking is that this variable 1 probably needs to be a global variable. And we could test that out just by running it. And let's make X win. So let's give him space row 1, column 1. O will go in 2 and 1. He'll go in 1 and 2. He'll go in 2 and 2. And then X should win right here. So he'll go in row 1, column 3. He should have won there, right? But it didn't happen. We're still in our loop. 1 is still equal to false because this one is local. So we could just bring that into this by going global 1. And now this variable 1 is now global. Actually, it didn't matter anyway because we never called check horizontal on each player. So let's do that as well. So let's place tick, and then each turn we also want to check for a horizontal win. So we want to check it for X, and we want to check it for O. All right. So now with those two things fixed, we should be able to go. So let's give him 1 and 1, 2 and 1, 1 and 2, 2 and 2. And then he should win right here if I go in 1 and 3. And you can see the game ends because 1 got set equal to true. Right? So one other thing we might want to do before we do that, you can see the game just stops because X won. We don't even get to see his piece get because this loop gets exited before it calls show board again. So let's just say if you win, we want to do two things. Let's show the board, and then let's print out that so-and-so is a winner. So print congratulations, player won the game horizontally. Sure, that works. So that should now print out that we have a winner horizontally. So let's one more time test it out. 1 and 1, 2 and 1, 1 and 2, 2 and 2, and then the winner 1 and 3. And then you can say, perfect, congratulations, X won the game horizontally, and you can see that win right there. So we now have a function that checks for horizontal wins, and that's cool. So when we come back, we'll write the same similar code for the vertical wins.